Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel GMB SHOW. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. The rain hit the windows of the London flat like it had a personal vendetta. Eamonn Holmes sat in a half-packed living room, boxes everywhere, some half-labeled, others abandoned mid-fill. It wasn't the grand Belfast house he once shared with Ruth, and it certainly wasn't the life he thought he'd be living at 65. A single suitcase sat by the door, navy blue with a broken wheel. That was the one he had taken when he left the house he'd once called their forever home. Now it belonged to some influencer couple who had more followers than years on the planet. He looked around and exhaled, the sound too heavy for the room. GB News had been a lifeline when he left ITV, a chance to do things on his own terms. But even that had taken its toll. The early mornings, the endless barrage of opinions, the invisible pressure to be relevant in a world that moved faster than even his quick wit could follow. And then there was the silence that followed every broadcast. No Ruth waiting with a cup of tea, no shared glances that said, "We made it through another day." He'd been forced to sell the house, the headlines said. But no one forced him to walk out of a marriage that had lost its music. That was his choice. The silence had gotten louder than any argument could have been. Sometimes love doesn't end with a bang. It just fades like a forgotten song on a playlist you never skip to anymore. Eamonn Holmes in major move. The tabloids screamed the headlines like a bad soap. But they didn't know what the move was, because not even Eamonn knew yet. It was an old friend, Des, a radio producer from way back, who dropped the idea over lunch in a quiet pub in Kentish town. "Why don't you do a podcast, mate?" Des said between mouthfuls of fish pie. "Call it Second Sunrise or something poetic. Everyone's got a podcast, but not everyone has your voice or your story." Eamonn laughed then, the kind of laugh that starts in the throat and ends in the ribs. "You want me, Eamonn Holmes, to sit in a room talking to a microphone like a man ranting in the street? No, I want you to connect like you used to. Remember your radio days. People felt you, not just watched you. There's a difference." 2 months later, he was in a borrowed studio in Manchester, mic in front of him, headphones on, script abandoned on the floor. The podcast was real. Second Sunrise had a logo, a theme tune, and a loyal listener base growing faster than Eamonn could keep track of. But more importantly, it had him. The first episode was raw. He didn't talk about the split in detail, but he didn't pretend either. He said, "Sometimes life hands you a full deck and you still lose the game. But there's always the next morning, the next sunrise. That's what this is about." People wrote in, thousands of them. A retired nurse from Swansea said she hadn't smiled since her husband died until she heard his story. A young man from Dublin said he was thinking of quitting journalism until Eamonn reminded him that storytelling was about people, not platforms. And then came her. Claire was a journalist, younger by a decade, but old in soul. She'd been assigned to write a feature for a digital magazine on the surprising rise of Eamonn Holmes' podcast. She came in cynical, expecting a man clinging to relevance. Instead, she found someone brave enough to start again. Their first conversation turned into dinner. Dinner turned into long walks through Hyde Park. One night, walking past the Serpentine under a burnt orange sky, she turned to him and asked him, "Do you miss the old life?" He paused. "I miss the comfort, but not the cage." By spring, Eamonn had moved again, not to a mansion, but to a cottage on the coast of Northern Ireland, close enough to Belfast to feel familiar, far enough to feel new. The view from the window wasn't a TV screen or a news ticker. It was the sea, constant, wild, unforgiving, just like life. He recorded the podcast from a tiny room overlooking the cliffs. He had a dog now, a stubborn rescue terrier named Murphy who hated mornings as much as Eamonn used to. Every episode started with the same words: "Good morning, wherever you are. Today's another second sunrise." The media tried to spin it. Eamonn Holmes escapes to the country after Heartbreak. But for once, he didn't care. He wasn't escaping anything. He was finally arriving.